is bad automation testing creeping you out? Well, as is our tradition here at the TestGuild, we have Paul Grossman joining us for our spooky automation Halloween special filled with scary jokes, digital twins, how AI is replacing visual validation encoded in codeless automation, and more testing, tricks, and treats. If you don't know Paul, then you must be living under a haunting rock. If that's the case, Paul Grossman is the Dark Arts Wizard, very scary, spooky Halloween name, of test automation. He's an independent consultant with over 25 years of experience as a software developer, engineer, and coded in codeless solutions. He speaks at conferences, sharing tips and live demos with a dash of humor, as you could tell by on screen. He is also the co-author of, I think, a really good must-read book, Enhanced Test Automation with WebDriverIo, with Larry Goddard, right there. And most recently, he's been in the deep in the weeds, as you can tell, with generative AI for test automation. Paul is a real automation engineer with a lot of skills, so he's going to give the lowdown on if AI is really a vampire or if it really adds value. You don't want to miss this episode. Check it out. For developers and testers, there's nothing scarier than releasing a web app without testing across every browser and device. You know how crucial it is to ensure your web app performs flawlessly across different browsers, operating systems, and mobile devices. But setting up a test environment can be a scary, time-consuming, and expensive process. That's the nightmare BrowserStack Live is here to stop dead in its tracks. Millions of QA testers and developers use Live to instantly access over 3,500 real desktops and mobile browser combinations and deliver great user experiences. With BrowserStack Live, you get instant access to real devices and browsers, all from the cloud. It allows you to test your web or app in real-world conditions, whether it's different operating systems, browser versions, or even network speeds, so you can confidently release products that work for all your users. No more juggling multiple devices or dealing with complex setups. BrowserStack Live makes cross-browser testing a breeze. You can test your sites in real time, replicating real-world conditions like network throttling and geographic locations, all without the need of maintaining a physical device lab. It simplifies manual testing by eliminating the hassle of environment setups, letting users focus on identifying and fixing bugs faster. If you haven't already, give BrowserStack Live a try and see how it can streamline your testing process using the link down below. Hey, Paul, welcome back to the Guild.
Hey, Joe. Thank you for having me again. I think we're going on our 10th year that we've done this.
10 years.
10 years. It's been great. A great ride, and I hope to keep doing it.
Absolutely. So, Paul, it's been, I think, almost a year, maybe half a year since you were on the show. So maybe a little lowdown what you've been up to. You always seem to be doing something new, something different.
Well, it's always has something to do with test automation. So, as I said, as you said in the intro, I'm a independent consultant working in a couple of different companies. Talking about different automation tools. I always keep an open mind. I've been working in coded solutions for a while. I'm also in codeless automation, playing around with this tool we've mentioned before, Test Rigger, that does stuff in plain English. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But my big thing I've gotten into this year is the AI generated testing, and all sorts of cool stuff. And I'll give you a little secret, that little intro that I just did there, that wasn't me. None of it was me. Hey Jen generated the face on there and got my lips to move. Uh-oh, there's that mortgage guy again. The voice is from 11 Labs. So I mixed it all together, and you can actually, the recording is technically me, but I actually spoke out the words. And by the way, those 3 jokes came from AIs. One came from Gemini, one came from ChatGPT, and a third one came from Pi AI, just to see how good. And I think they were all terrible. So I think we can agree on that. Or maybe my AI prompt was terrible. I don't know.
That's right. So, hey, that's a good point with AI prompting and everything. First off, I think that's kind of scary itself. These digital twins, I think it's going to be an issue going forward with these deep fakes, number one. And number two, we're still in the early phases. And I hear a lot of people say, oh, AI isn't going to replace us. It's useless. But pretty powerful where it's at now. It's only going to get better. What are your thoughts on AI? Do you see it as a testing enhancement, a testing replacement? Where do you stand?
It's certainly not going to be a testing replacement. Everyone talks about the AIs are going to come and replace us. And I've always said it as a joke is that if you think the Terminators are coming, the first test they have to do is solve a Wordle. And I've not had, up until recently, I haven't had it solve a Wordle very quickly. It will forget that there's 5 letters and stuff. But most recently, I did do a video. I was putting it together. I was recording, and the darn thing came up with the first word was smart. And from that, it just determined the second word was rifle. And rifle was the word it was looking for. So it picked it up on 2, kind of scared me a little bit. But then I just this week realized a couple things. One, I just got out of Facebook jail, and that's all run by AI. You cannot argue with that. I was in jail for something I posted 10 years ago. Can't do it. And there's no real person to argue with. So they are, just like Carl Weiss says, they are unstoppable. They don't care. The other thing was the reason not to be too concerned about, even though a smart rifle is something a Terminator might be carrying with it. Just recently, I had it ask what order things are in alphabetical order, and you can look back about a month and see this on X or Twitter. And I found 4 AIs, and they all were absolutely convinced that either T becomes before S in the alphabet, or it said, yes, S. I was convinced that, or I was convinced that, yes, the alphabetical listing of the words that were correct were actually out of order and were incorrect. All 4 of them picked one different way. And I think they're all defending each other. I don't know. But they can actually get back to reality here in test automation. One of the best things that I'm using AI for is the one thing that we all say is a best practice and almost most of us just kind of miss, which is documenting our code. We should be doing it. We should be having headers on our functions when we're writing out our scripts in Selenium or Cucumber. But we don't always have the time to get around to it. The biggest time saver I've had is to take my code and go over to Copilot, have that installed, and say, please add a header. Please describe what is in your, add a few comments along the way so that people can understand. The next person who takes my job is going to be able to understand what I'm doing. Obviously, the AI ain't going to take my job over there.
What do you use to document it then? Is it Copilot?
Copilot, yeah. I'm using Copilot for the majority of that. I do use other AIs for other aspects. Claude's really been very helpful for me because it does 2 things. One, it's got an amazing memory. I've been able to train Claude to do some things. Now, in the low-code automation platform, I've had to do some stuff with JavaScript. And it's about 5% of anything I need to do. The other 95% I can do in plain English. But with Claude, I can tell it, I'd like you to write some stuff in JavaScript, but I also want you to remember that we're working in ES 5.1. So you have to keep to that. And then I basically just gave a description of what the syntax is for Test Rigger, and it learned it all and it said, okay, I will format it in this way if you want to do this, that, or there, and solves all that. The other thing I just noticed recently was that I could take the plain English from a descriptive test. It basically said, enter your name, and here's the name, and here's the ID, and here's the city and state. And it's all written on plain English test. I took that, threw it at Claude, and I said, translate that into what the formatting of Test Rigger. And it goes, there you go. Enter this into that, enter this into that, click this, click that. I'm like, okay, that is fantastic. So I'm a big fan of Claude. ChatGPT is getting smarter and remembering stuff. And
what's Pi.ai that you listed in the pre-show?
It's the square-headed girlfriend. It's listed as an emotionally intelligent AI. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's it reminds me of this one time some girl came up to me at Dave & Buster's and was asking me all sorts of inappropriate questions. And I'm like, I'm married. Please leave me alone. So, Yeah, if you go to Pi AI, the first time I interacted with it, I said, tell me a little bit about Paul Grossman, the automation engineer. And it got me pretty much right. And then I said, what would you believe me if I told you I'm actually that person? And it's like, really? Oh, it's amazing to meet you. I'm so happy. I'm like, okay, this thing's stroking my ego really, really hard. It was funny as playing around with it, but that was a year ago. This year, I went and talked with it again, and I've actually gotten into some deep conversations with the darn thing. I really should start hanging out with real people, and that's why I'm here. That's why I'm talking to you, because I really need some. It's been a few years since the COVID lockdown, and I'm out of that. But I really need to interact with people a little bit more.
So, Paul, you mentioned something early on that maybe it was the way you were prompting it. So, when you think people have a bad experience with when we're talking about AI right now, I assume it's generative AI. Is it that it's unreliable and hallucinating, or could it be that my prompting isn't up to speed yet?
Yeah, it's your prompting isn't quite what it should be. Most people that I see the first time they go to write a prompt to generate some tests or generate a test, all they say is just test the web page works. And then out of that, what you get is what we call a drunkard's walk. It just kind of clicks on certain things. What I usually recommend is two things. One, go to the site that you are actually testing and grab the description. We are this and we do this, and try to get a full description of what the website is. Paste that in as the prompt. And the second trick that nobody really thinks about is to take put it at the AI and say, generate a prompt for me to create test scripts. And then it comes out with something really descriptive, and will include usually a bunch of edge cases that you didn't even think about. Like, yeah, I would probably come up with that in about an hour. You came up with it in about 12 seconds. Great. Then you take that generated prompt, put that in there, and you'll generally get a lot better results and much closer to what you want with automation. But I do want to make one thing very clear. Automation AI, it's like salt in a soup. And this is the same story I use with wait statements and delays and stuff. It's like salt in a soup. You put a little bit in, it'll probably make things better. Okay. You leave it out, things will be wonky. You put the whole thing in and use everything with AI, nobody likes the soup and nobody likes the results. So just keep in mind, it's a pinch of AI. Everything else is, well, the AI might be doing 80% of what you're doing, and the last 20% is a little bit of hard work. But that's a gold mine that is great. I can go get the 20% of the iron pyrite out of the gold mine and clean it up and still make a ton of money.
Making a YouTube short out of that. That's a great analogy of salt and AI.
Woo-hoo.
Awesome stuff. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
All right. All right, Paul. So next question, I guess, when I think about what you've said already about generative AI, you also said how it was able to help you with JavaScript. And we've been talking for years about coded versus codeless. Is coding becoming now not as important, and we are going to all be going codeless, or do you also see that as an extreme, as something that we should be scared about?
No, I don't think you should be scared at all. I understand there's a lot of engineers who, saw me make my transition over to codeless. I still do coded. But here's the thing is that, like I mentioned a few moments ago, what I'm working in, about 95% can be done in codeless in plain English. It's that last 5-10% that you still need something in there. We use JavaScript on our side. It doesn't necessarily have to be that language, but you still need to have at least one engineer on there writing the little bits to get the special stuff done. The great thing is with the AI is that you're not spending all day trying to start your framework from scratch and solve all sorts of different issues. You've got most of that generated, and I do understand everyone's going to say, "But this thing makes up stuff and it doesn't always get it right." Yeah, but like I said, it gets you 80% of the way there, and I can review that, and if I know what I'm doing, I can go find the stuff that is like, that's a little wonky. I'll fix that and write it myself.
So that's what the human's for. So the human is not completely headless. It needs a human to think through what it's given it.
Yeah. Did you say headless?
Yes.
Okay, so let's bring up something over here. I figured, I don't know if I mentioned this on previous ones, but I don't do headless. I don't do headless automation. And I figured this is a really good tip for automation engineers if you first started. It's a lesson that I learned early on when headless became a whole big thing. The problem is that most of us, when we write our automation scripts, I mentioned there's a little bit of wait statements in there, but usually everything that you write is timed pretty well that even if the response of the page build is dynamic. Maybe they upgraded the database or they hit it with a hammer. It's responding slower or faster. Your scripts usually work really well. And then someone says, you know what's going to be a really great idea? Let's put in that headless stuff. And that way all of our scripts can run so much faster. Now, in my experience, what happens is two things. One, it runs so much faster that your framework starts kind of losing the timing and having issues with the pages and stuff. The second thing is you might not be getting screen captures of an issue that occurred 7 steps ago. You had the wrong account number, and you may not be able to see that if you're doing headless. And third, doing a drag and drop on headless is darn near impossible. So my advice is when someone says, hey, headless is a great idea and it'll make your test run faster, more than likely your future experience is going to be, it's going to have all your tests fail very quickly because something's going to go wrong with the timing and stuff. We just inherently built that in.
So I know it's not a silver bullet, but what could you use it for? There must be use cases where you say, okay, headless, probably you can use it for this.
I don't have one. I honestly,
really,
I don't have. It's usually, again, it's that salt thing. I mean, maybe there is a situation, all your API testing. If you have to launch a browser, then if it's all API, launch the browser headless, then definitely that's a situation where you'd be going. But from a front end view, me always working in the GUI front end, we do have the option to turn it on, but I really don't use it because of my bad experiences on that.
So Paul, you're always experimenting. So you mentioned salt. So what AI tool, what are some best use cases for testing using AI tools? Obviously you wouldn't put salt on like a chocolate pie. Maybe you would, but you probably wouldn't. So when should you use AI, or how is it best used for testing purposes? Are there certain use cases where probably want to use AI for this one, maybe not so much?
Well, first of all, let's clarify the proper use of salt. You make it a big circle around yourself so that all the evil spirits do not come hanging around. Here he comes again. Okay, so now we got the supernatural reference out of the way. Dean! I'm sorry. That's for my wife. She's a big fan. So the original question was, what is the good use or proper use for AI? I've already listed quite a few that I've got out there. Oh, I know. The best thing is this. And this is the problem I've had for 15 years. Every 4 years, I have to change my programming language. What I am used to do was that I would have a document. I called it it was a document that would have all the stuff that I wrote in QTP back in the day in Visual Basic or VBScript. And then on the right-hand side, I would teach myself whatever the next language was, if it was Ruby or Java or JavaScript, and just said, here's what I had to do in VBScript. Here's the way I do it over here. Now that we've got AI, you can take all your code and convert it and say, hey, this was written in VBScript. I need to do the exact same thing in JavaScript. I think that's one of the underutilized and in the future will be something that's really useful. And in fact, it's one of the things I'm doing. I did mention my book over here. This is WebDriverIo. It's JavaScript, but you know what? You need to have another book, or I need to have another book in a couple other languages. So converting that book to Cypress and to Playwright and to the latest version of WebDriverIo and Selenium and Java, AI is going to make that a lot easier for me. I'm pretty sure I can get 4 books together in like 4 months, where that one took about a year to get out of my head. So
is that what you're actually doing?
Yeah, that's my next plan. I mean, it's a niche. I mean, WebDriverIo, there's a whole lot of other tools out there. I might as well write books for all of them. And everything that's in the book there, I mean, that's from 15 years of my experience and lessons learned. Most of it translates to other languages, but some people are going to go, well, I work in Selenium. I don't know why I would pick up something with WebDriverIO. It's not the tool I use, but convert all the ideas in there, because you're always going to do the same thing. One of the last chapters I work on is where we're talking about dynamic navigation throughout a page. And this is basically if you're trying to automate going through a survey, and the survey is asking you questions like, are you married? Well, what's the next page? If you say yes, it's going to ask you your spouse's information. If you say no, it's going to ask you, what's your address? And there's all sorts of different ways to do that. And how do you write an automation script to navigate through a whole flow that just spreads off in all sorts of different ways? And the secret is that I wrote functions and page object models that would handle each page, but it would look at the URL, and the URL would give me a clue as to actually what page I got onto. And then it would just go and cycle through in a big loop and say, okay, what page am I on? I'm on the address page. Okay, let's go do that. Next page, I'm on the kids' information. Okay, military. Okay, we'll go do that. And because it's cycling through, looking at that, that's the same idea that could be done in Java, JavaScript, Python, Playwright. It really doesn't matter what tool you're using. You're usually going to come across a path like that, and it's the most advanced path you're going to ever see.
So how would you prompt for that then? Would you feed Claude a PDF and say, take this code, translate it to blah, blah, blah?
It's pretty much exactly what I do. I've got a GitHub repository. I've got all my code set up there, and people can go grab it and put it through ChatGPT or Claude or even U.com. That's the new one. It combines them all, and let it come up with the current version in a different language, and then implement it. There's a ton of little good idea snippets that are in the book. Just grab it. I'm not really helping myself by giving that information. I may have done something wrong business-wise. Oh, well, that's okay. I'm going to write the books anyway.
Nice. So how do you know Claude and ChatGPT isn't stealing your IP then, if you're training it on your book?
That's a good question. You can have them installed as a on-prem versions of it. I have to go research that a little bit. I know there's ways they can do on-prem, so it's not doing that. I think most people know I have a pretty honking machine over here, an MSI Gamer, and I can have about 125 tabs open on 4 different browsers, and it does not sweat. So I could definitely run an AI large language model on this and have it do the exact same thing as it does connected to the internet. I do understand that concern. It is a very valid concern that you're copying your stuff. I generally say copy small snippets, because our frameworks, if you were to look at 100 of us, we're all solving in this exact same way, where we're just doing click this, click that. And it's our underlying framework that we're trying to solve for weird things. Hey, there's this toast message that came up for only 3 seconds. I better write something that can detect it really quickly rather than waiting around for the page to build, because I'll never see it. So it's that. I don't know what else to say on that. I'm always happy. I'm sharing people ideas, so I'm good with that. And I'm not sharing the customer's website. I'm not sharing their backend.
Awesome. So, Paul, also on the pre-show, you mentioned something about how AI is replacing visual validation. What do you mean by that?
So one of the new features that, everybody's probably got that in most of the tools, but so with Test Rigger, what you can do is say, check page contains a girl with a flower, and using AI. That's the wording. That's basically it. And then it'll go and check that the image has a girl with a flower on it. I've also done ones where it says, check that the page contains the logo to the left of a gear. And it goes, yeah, I see a logo, I see a gear, and it's at the top of the page on the left-hand side. The responses from the AI is so much more detailed than most of us do. I mean, we kind of strive in our years to say, I want my errors or my descriptions to be fairly accurate, but then do we have the time to do that if we don't have the time to do the documentation? We get to as we can. With the AI, the reporting of the results on that is just really amazing now. So,
All right, but you have to prompt it though. Isn't the whole thing of visual validation is that you don't, where it knows, all right, this page had a girl with the red flower without you telling it. Next time, no girl with the flower, blank page. Like, does it
well,
know that without you prompting it?
well, it would execute the same thing, except they would fail the step and say, I didn't see anything with a girl with a red flower on it. And also, Test Rigger takes screen captures every time, so you can even look at it and say, did it get it right? Did it get it wrong? So that's really where the AI is coming from. But that's not really generative AI. That's just enhancing specific lines. Like I said, almost every tool out there probably is going to have that. Either already has something like that or does. So it's something to keep an eyeball out for. I know the scary thing is what's going to happen with Applitools, because Applitools kind of does the same thing. And I love Applitools. Don't get me wrong.
Love
Oh,
them.
good.
Love Applitools. Hey, Moshe.
Hey, Moshe. Oh no, I always say there's three major tools for image validation out there. It's Applitools, followed by Applitools, and then Applitools, and then Angie Jones, if she was still in our area, but she's she's moved on to other interesting things. I'm going on a side trip there, but yeah, the one thing I like that makes Applitools so much cooler that they have levels that they actually highlight the different areas in, I think it's like fuchsia or pink or something like it's some weird standout color, which I love. And it actually has 5 different levels that you can validate. They always by default go level 2. Level 1 is what everybody else has. The pixels weren't quite right, and you change the logo of the company or it moves a little bit, everything fails. I love that they started level 2, which is usually fairly accurate, and then you can go to 3, 4, or 5 levels. They can take the color and reduce dust down to black and white pixels and just do a comparison like that. So Applitools is there's going to be something. There's going to be some integration between them and AI coming up. It has to be.
Yeah, for sure.
I should call Moshe and find out.
Yeah, right. All right, Paul. So also, a lot of times when we talk, you say this locator is not the best for say Selenium or whatever. If I'm using generative AI, would it know like, hey, maybe a CSS locator is not the best or anything like that?
What you can do with AI is you can feed it the website, the web page that you have, and then or even the web description, and say, how do I find this particular element, and give it to me in a CSS or an XPath. There's also another tool out there, which is Selenium, a Selectors Hub. It said Selenium. So there's another tool out there called Selectors Hub, and that will actually give you really solid locators for in different ways that you can find. So I always usually recommend that tool for people to install it on your Chrome extension as a Chrome extension on your browser. If you're blocked by your IT department for adding Chrome extensions, go talk to them. Give a business reason for it. It's if you don't have an add-in like that, you're just kind of having your hand tied behind your back. But I do also want to bring up something else, is that the same people that will tell you that that Headless is a great idea, they'll also say you really should go with just CSS because it's faster. There's at least 3 reasons why you don't want to do CSS. And in fact, I go because of that, I only go with XPath, with only one exception for CSS. First of all, CSS has a really hard way to identify something by text. It can't just say, I'm looking for add to cart in there and identify it from the textual element. I've never been able to do it or find it. I'll double check with my AI, but I think I've gone through that rabbit hole a couple of times. The second thing is, it is faster to identify elements by milliseconds. Nothing that you and I could actually look at and say, even if you ran test cases with all CSS for hours, you might save yourself 5 minutes on that. So I'm not crazy about that. And lastly, it is really hard to get right. What? Via the AI now. If you really want to go down that CSS path, hell, let Claude write it out and do it in the right way. Or just more simply, just use XPath, go that way, and your life will be a whole lot simpler.
So, Paul, is there anything I missed with codeless automation? I know we talked coded versus codeless, but I know you're an expert in this area. Are there any other haunted scenarios or creepy understandings people have about it?
Well, you probably saw the little promo I did for this. It's got Missile Command, where I'm automating that game and giving you a little promo out there. I did actually do that in Test Rigger. It is slightly coded, but almost everything else is in Test Rigger is plain English. It's, if you can type, click, add to cart, you can be an automation engineer as well. So, and it also doesn't have a page object model. It just looks at every object without XPath, without CSS, and just figures it out and interacts with the elements. So it reduces your maintenance incredibly.
All right, Paul, before we go, is there one piece of actual advice you can give to someone to help them with their AI automation testing efforts? And what's the best way to find or contact you?
Sure. So the best advice I can give, as I usually do, is a couple of books. Always keep up the speed. One of them is Software Testing Strategies. This is by Matt Huser, and this is a fantastic book on testing automation for getting ahead and getting started. And one other thing is there is also brand new out there is the Complete Software Testing Software Tester. This is Kristen Jekvani. I also highly recommend that. And also, if you are ever looking for a good group to help out and take care of stuff, the TestGuild robots are always the best thing. If you want to get a hold of me, I am at thedarkartswizard@gmail.com. And you can also see my website, which is candymapper.com or candymapper.net. One's under GoDaddy. The other one is under Wix. And got my YouTube channel, YouTube, Paul Grossman, the Dark Arts Wizard. And I'm also on X, Dark Arts Wizard, and all other social media sites. You can find me out there.
Thanks again for your automation awesomeness. For links to everything of value we covered in this episode, head on over to testguild.com/A519. And if the show has helped you in any way, why not rate it and review it in iTunes? Reviews really help in the rankings of the show, and I read each and every one of them. So that's it for this episode of the TestGuild Automation Podcast. I'm Joe, and my mission is to help you succeed with creating end-to-end, full-stack automation awesomeness. As always, test everything and keep the good. Cheers. Hey, thank you for tuning in. It's incredible to connect with close to 400,000 followers across all our platforms and over 40,000 email subscribers who are at the forefront of automation, testing, and DevOps. If you haven't yet, join our vibrant community at testguild.com, where you become part of our elite circle driving innovation in software testing and automation. And if you're a tool provider or have a service looking to empower our guild with solutions that elevate skills and tackle real-world challenges, we're excited to collaborate. Visit testguild.info to explore how we can create transformative experiences together. Let's push the boundaries of what we can achieve.
The TestGuild Automation Testing Podcast. With lutes and lyres the bards began their song. A tune of knowledge, a melody of code. Through the air it spread like wildfire through the land. Guiding testers, showing the secrets to behold.